I have 4 bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, and I'm going to add an onion. This is just for the broth portion. Later, I'm going to fish this out. You don't even need to peel this because the skin of an onion provides great flavor and color to any kind of broth that you're doing. So I'm just going to cut it and throw it in. I'm also going to add some of the celery. Again, it's good flavor for the broth. And then I have some thyme, a bunch of it from my garden still that I just cut today. So I'm going to take the thyme and peel these off the sprigs, just like this. If I had some butcher string, I would just tie this all up and throw it in here, but I ran out and so I have to do this. If you don't have fresh thyme on hand or you can't find it at your local grocery store, my local Kroger almost always has it. But if you can't find it, just use dried, which I also have, and it works just fine. I'm not going to add any salt to this until later because I am going to be adding some chicken broth, so I don't want it to be too salty. So we'll taste it later and see if it needs any adjusting. But the star of this show is this kettle and fire chicken broth.
I didn't get a good shot of it in my video, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like.
If you've never used kettle and fire, I highly, highly recommend it. Once you try this, you will not go back to any other chicken broth or chicken stock unless you make your own, of course, but this stuff is amazing. What I really prefer is the kettle and fire chicken bone broth.
And this is what the chicken bone broth box looks like.
But my local Kroger has been out of it for days, and so this is all they have, and I bought almost the last of their chicken broth, so it's super popular. I'm not sure how much I need. Let's see. I'm going to add more. That was 4 cups. I used about half of this one, so call it about 6 cups or so. I'm just going to get this on the stove and let this cook for on low heat for probably a couple hours, and then we'll be back for the next step.
We'll be back a little later, but in the meantime, let's get some more vegetables prepped. Okay, we are a couple hours in. Let's give the broth a try and see what we think of it and if we need to make any adjustments.
It's perfect. It doesn't need any salt. It's not too salty. Oh my God. I could just eat this for dinner. It's perfection. Okay, this broth has been cooking low and slow for a number of hours.
think about 2.5 hours. The chicken is just falling apart. So tender. The broth looks so rich. I'm just going to run this through a strainer. I'll be right back. This is what my broth is looking like after being strained. I could have run it through a cheesecloth, which would have really even made it even more like clear and beautiful. But I don't know where my cheesecloth is right now, and I don't feel like looking for it. It's getting a little bit late, so I'm just going to leave it looking like this, which is kind of nice and rustic. Now I'm adding some butter. Now I'm going in with the celery, carrots, and onions that we chopped up. And the potatoes. I should have put these in earlier and I just forgot, so I'm doing it now. Because the potatoes are bigger and are going to take longer to cook than these other smaller vegetables, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. I meant to throw them in with the broth when I was cooking the broth. I got totally distracted. I took a nap. It just, time got away from me. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of salt and some pepper. I like to season my layers, so I just don't want it to be too salty. I'm going to sprinkle in just a little bit of flour. Not a true roux. I'm not doing a true like equal parts flour, because when I put my dumplings in, those are going to be made of flour, coated with flour, so that is going to really help thicken things up. And I'm just going to cook off this flour a little bit, just for about a minute. Just be careful not to burn it. Now the hot broth going back in. Just going to bring this up to a boil for a minute. And because a lot of my broth cooked down, I am going to add in the rest of the kettle and fire chicken broth that was in here. So all in all, we are adding 8 cups of chicken broth. Okay, it is boiling. I'm going to add some more of that broth. To make the dumplings, it's super easy. Just add a couple cups of all-purpose flour to a bowl, along with a couple teaspoons of salt, and then add in some room temperature water, and then give it a stir until it just forms into a ball of dough, roughly. This recipe is very forgiving, so don't get too stressed out about this. Super simple, super easy. Once you get this formed into a little ball of dough, I like to make sure my surface is well floured underneath and on top. I also flour my rolling pin, and then you just get it rolled out to the thickness that you like. I like them pretty thin, but if you'd like a thicker dumpling, you could certainly do that. It's totally up to you. And then once I get it rolled out to the thickness that I like, I just cut them up into squares. I make mine kind of on the larger side. Again, personal preference. You could do these in whatever shape or size or thickness that you like. And then once I get them all cut up, I pile them up and bring them over to my stove. And you just drop them into the boiling broth. And that is it. It is so easy to do these dumplings, and they are so delicious. Just a tip though, I would not make these ahead of time. Always make them right before you're ready to drop them in and cook them. I thought I had my camera on when I was adding all the dumplings, but I didn't, so this is what it looks like when I add a dumpling in. I usually do 4 at a time and just give them a stir so that they don't stick together, and then I cook them for about 8 to 10 minutes after I get them all added, depending on how thick they are. I took all of the chicken off the bones, and after the dumplings are finished cooking, I add it all back into the pot, and we are ready to serve this up. And as always, I will include the full recipe down below in the description box. I love pepper, so I always add extra pepper to mine, but of course this is totally optional. Do what you like. And just like that, dinner is ready. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It's free. I just want to say thanks so much for hanging out with me in my kitchen today, and I can't wait to see you next time.